welcome to Behind the Ballet. I'm Elizabeth Kaye, and today I'll be telling you about the program titled 20th Century Works, Balanchine and Ashton. This is one of 3 distinct programs featuring 7 ballets that American Ballet Theatre is presenting in this fall season. As noted by ABT's artistic director, Susan Jaffe, these ballets were chosen to show you the scope of this exquisite art and to showcase the extraordinary skills of ABT's dancers. Every ballet begins in the mind of a choreographer whose daunting task is to find a way to speak to us clearly and eloquently without the use of a single word. As they do this, the ballet steps become the dance equivalent of an alphabet, through which choreographers create their own form of language, and beyond that, their own form of magic. The ingenious ways in which they knit these steps together give us more than a dance. They give us a world. In this program, one of those worlds is set in a palace in the vanished past. The other takes place in a lush, moonlit forest where sorcery and mystery and mischief abound. In the 20th century, the 2 brilliant choreographers whose offerings comprise this program possessed a special gift for transporting us to those worlds. George Balanchine and Frederick Ashton were born 9 months apart in 1904. Though their dance styles would differ, these 2 men have many similarities. Both were forward-thinking, yet retained a wistful affection for the past. Balanchine for Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution brought starvation and hardship, Ashton for the gentler England that existed before the First World War. Both would find their muses in their ballerinas, and just as Balanchine would become the father of American ballet, so Ashton would father ballet in Britain. Both, in the early part of their lives, had no interest in dance, yet for each of them, a single dance performance would set the course of their life and endow them with a passion, a calling, and a destiny. As a boy growing up in Tsarist Russia, it was assumed that the young Balanchine would follow the path trod by several of his relatives and become a military officer. His uncles would admire his perfect posture and exclaim, "Look at that back," as they imagined how wonderful he would look in a uniform. But it was his eyes that offered a more telling key to him. Even as a child, his gaze was unflinching, direct, prematurely wise. It was a gaze that would soon prompt a ballerina to say, "There's a little boy who doesn't miss a thing." In his early youth, he became fascinated by the Russian Orthodox Church and considered becoming a priest. In his bedroom, he set up an altar made of chairs stacked together. He also fashioned a priest outfit for himself and spent hours blessing objects and pretending he was holding high mass. When he attended church, he was drawn to the music, the inherent theatricality, elements that would become linchpins of his choreography. He came to ballet, as many young men do, because his sister wanted to dance. His mother took him along to his sister's audition for the ballet section of the Imperial Theatre School, and it was suggested that he also audition. He had never danced, but it made no difference. The audition consisted simply of walking back and forth in front of a selection committee that looked for posture, poise, and something that could not quite be defined. 9-year-old Balanchine was accepted. His sister was not. He was left at the school that day, like a dog, he would later say, to live in a dormitory and study dance. He hated it and ran away several times. But in his second year, something happened that transformed him. The company was performing The Sleeping Beauty, the greatest collaboration of Marius Petipa and Tchaikovsky, and the apex of classical dance. The young Balanchine danced the Garland Waltz and appeared as a little Cupid in one of 10 golden carriages brought on stage for the final act. When he wasn't on stage, he watched from the wings. He was bewitched by the scenery with its grand depiction of the royal court, by the boat floating on the imaginary lake, by the glorious music, and above all, by the beautiful leading ballerina, Mara Karsavina. He realized that she had gone to the school he was attending and had received there the training that made her such an otherworldly creature. From that moment, he wanted to make a life in dance. Just a few years after that, he saw another ballet that captivated him. Les Sylphides, choreographed by Fokine, was the first plotless ballet, and as such, it challenged the long-held assumption that a ballet is required to tell a story. The young Balanchine was amazed to discover that this ballet imparted a mood and emotion simply through dancing. Decades later, in 1940, when he was living in New York City, he saw Les Sylphides again, when it was presented by Ballet Theatre, as ABT was called in its early days. Once again, he was struck by the power of this plotless work, and he said to a friend, "If Fokine could do it, why can't I?" And of course, he did do it many times, including 1 year later in 1941, when he made Ballet Imperial, which you will see on this program. You know, tone tends to be an underappreciated quality in a ballet, and the tone Balanchine establishes in Ballet Imperial evokes the consummate graciousness that permeated the grand Russian ballets of Petipa, Tchaikovsky, Swan Lake, The Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, all of them created in the late 19th century. This was the era when the Tsar reigned, and the stage set for Ballet Imperial recalls the Tsar's winter palace in St. Petersburg, with the river Neva seen in the distance. Significantly, the Imperial Ballet and the ballet school were personally supported by Tsar Nicholas II. For the young Balanchine, the Tsar was not a distant figure, but rather a man who was kind to the young dancers who attended the Imperial Ballet School. After these children performed, they would, on occasion, be conveyed to the lavish royal box, where they were presented to the Tsar. To the end of his life, Balanchine recalled that if the Tsar asked, "How are you?" you were supposed to click your heels and reply, "Highly pleased, Your Imperial Majesty." On one occasion, the Tsar patted Balanchine's shoulder and smiled at him, then gave each of the children a silver box stamped with the imperial crest and filled with chocolates. The other children kept their boxes and chocolates as a precious souvenir. Young Balanchine may have kept the silver box, but he ate the chocolates. For Balanchine, music was primary. The music for Ballet Imperial is Piano Concerto No. 2 by Tchaikovsky, whom Balanchine revered. Tchaikovsky died 11 years before Balanchine was born, but throughout his life, Balanchine asserted that he felt Tchaikovsky's presence and that he often, somehow, consulted with him and received his help. When ABT first danced Ballet Imperial in 1988, the leading roles were danced by ABT's former and current artistic directors, Kevin McKenzie and Susan Jaffe. From the start of the ballet, when we see the dancers bow to one another, we are drawn into the spectacular lost world Balanchine has created, a world that promises exquisite grace and sheer amazement as the dancers move in lush patterns that are augmented with virtuosic passages. There is a distinct regality in the bearing of the men as they walk slowly in a circle, surrounded by a circle of women who bourrée around them. One achingly lovely moment occurs when a male dancer offers his hand to one woman, then to another, as all 10 women on the stage join hands, and he leads them forward to the impossibly gentle music. You do not need a plot to be choked with emotion and wonder by the beauty of it. The second ballet you'll see was created by Frederick, the quintessential English choreographer, who was originally South American. Born in Ecuador, he was raised by British parents in Lima, Peru, where his father was a British vice consul. As a sharp-eyed, sensitive boy, Peruvian life gave him images that became indelible and would find echoes in his ballets. The unabashed sensuality of tango dancers, the gently swaying walk of purple-clad priests at the yearly procession of the Lord of the Miracles. He knew nothing of ballet when, at age 13, his mother took him to a performance given by the mythic Anna Pavlova. The moment she stepped onto the stage in a ballet called The Fairy Doll, his life was forever changed. For the young Ashton, beholding Pavlova was adoration at first sight. He was awed by her curving torso, by the enchanting way she used her hands and eyes, and by what he would describe as her shimmering presence. Later, he would say, "She injected me with her poison." That poison was the need to dance. But his parents were appalled by the thought of him pursuing a life in dance, and so he did not begin training until he was 20. His teacher drove him mercilessly, saying, "Freddie, pull in your great bottom. You flaunt your bottom like a banner." His first performances were at the Mercury Theater, where the performance scenes of the movie The Red Shoes were later filmed. The Mercury stage was so small that Ashton had to do lots of little steps and changes of direction, and these would become enduring features of his work. He was not fated to be a great dancer, but it soon became clear that he had a gift for creating dance. In 1934, the year that Balanchine created Serenade, his first masterpiece created in America for American dancers, Ashton would be hired as choreographer of the Vic Wells Ballet, which would become the Royal Ballet, at his creative home. As the Royal Ballet's choreographer and eventual director, he would devise a pure, uniquely English style of dance that owed a great deal to the fact that Pavlova's dancing continued to haunt him. And so her classicism, her lyrical, subtle glamour, would suffuse the remarkable way he choreographed for his ballerinas, as you will see in this program in his ballet, The Dream. The Dream is not simply poetic. It is a poem unto itself, a poem that unfolds through the lilting music of Felix Mendelssohn and through Ashton's liquid movement, enchants us with the opening dance of the Gossamer Fairies who attend Titania, the Fairy Queen, and thrills us with the high-flying, whirling pyrotechnics of the endearingly mischievous Puck, a sprite who serves Oberon, the Fairy King. Titania and Oberon are proud and stubborn. When we first see them, they are vying for dominance as they battle over who should take charge of a changeling boy. It is Titania who prevails in the skirmish, leaving Oberon set on revenge. He bids Puck to bring him a flower whose nectar, when dropped in unguarded eyes during sleep, will cause the individual, upon awakening, to fall madly in love with the first person they see. When Titania is sleeping, Oberon places drops of the nectar in her eyes. When she awakes, the object of her passion is the hapless bottom, an unsuspecting rural lad on whose head Puck has impishly affixed the head of a donkey. We also see in the forest two couples, one of them deeply in love, the other feuding because he doesn't love the woman who loves him. When Oberon sends Puck to resolve their dilemma, Puck places the nectar in the wrong man's eyes, and misadventure and chaos ensue. What is astonishing is that Ashton tells Shakespeare's complex, ever-evolving story with such pinpoint clarity that we know at every moment precisely what is happening and why. Words are not necessary, not even the bard's words, because ballet can speak to us so powerfully that what we see resonates not only in our minds, but in our hearts. This is especially true of the final pas de deux, in which Titania and Oberon rekindle their love and passion in a dance as beguiling as it is seductive. One lovely thing to look for is when Titania bends deeply from her waist and Oberon turns her toward him, then raises her into arabesque. This is a step that Ashton envisioned in a dream of his own, a dream he had one night as he slept, and it is a step he likes so much that he has them repeated. The two ballets in this program speak to us in different ways. Ballet Imperial's majestic beauty is perfumed with an evocation of the distant past, while The Dream's delectable dancing is doused with emotion in its many forms. But what both of these masterworks show us is that a ballet performance gives us even more than a gorgeous art. It also gives us a haven, a place where, when the lights go down and the curtain goes up, we can escape the cares of the everyday as we're taken to worlds where there is only movement and music and the magic dancers create through the unique eloquence of this wordless art. Goodbye for now, and thank you for joining me for Behind the Ballet.